Okay, hi, good morning, good afternoon, depending on at what time you're connecting. My name is Nuria. I live in Argentina and I am currently working for SIT. I'm also doing consultancy work for a program from United Nations that it's called Spotlight and that it's aimed at reducing violence against women. So I studied political science at my early days. Then I studied, I did a master's on development studies, and then my PhD in social sciences. So I have quite a bit of experience in working for development organizations, Oxfam, also some other NGOs in the global south. And I also have studied the topic academically, so I'm very much looking forward to sharing my knowledge and my experience and exchanging ideas with you about this. I'm excited also to share this time with you that you are moving forward with projects on education, international education, and I think there's going to be very interesting topics that we can discuss together about how to build educational projects around gender. So just to get started, the idea of today's class is to understand a little bit the concept of gender and to deconstruct it. This is something that we will do all throughout the course in different ways. Also, when we will look at development theories, when we look at how it can be taught or how it has been taught in development projects within international education projects too. So this is just to get started. Okay, so moving forward, my idea for today is to look at the different feminist theories, contemporary feminist theories that actually stem from feminist waves. Yes, probably many of you already have some intuitive or even more rigorous understanding of feminism or gender. The idea is that in this class, we will try to understand the differences between the different positions and that you will gain a little bit more of clarity because sometimes you will come across people within the international education field and within development environment, so let's say development organizations that have different understandings, but also that they support different visions, so different theories of feminism. And this can come obviously from the fact that there has been different discussions throughout history. We will get started with those that are come from contemporary feminism that would get we could situate between the late 19th century and early 20th century up to today. More or less, we could say, just to simplify, that there is that currently we can identify 4 different feminism waves. We can discuss it in our forums and also in our synchronous sessions. That these different waves can be also different in the countries that you look at them, and maybe some can situate a certain wave at a different time, or one could even argue that there are some countries that are more still in a certain wave and not necessarily in what we would call nowadays the 4th wave. The idea is not that this course makes you an expert on all these things, because it's a one credit course, but the idea is that you do have some elements to understand certain differences within concepts, waves, and that if in the future you want to continue studying the topic, you know better where to start from and you understand better at least some of the discussions that are taking place in the field. So when in this first slide, you will see some of the names of the different types of feminisms that are also associated to different waves. You have on the one hand equality feminism, that would be the first wave feminism. Then you have difference feminism, second wave. And then you have the third wave that you could associate it on the one hand with post-feminism and on the other hand with post-colonial feminism, that it's a different type of interpretation of feminism. You have a fourth wave that it's under construction, and we can discuss a little bit later on. Okay, so as I said, the first wave mainly started end of 19th century and continued through until the beginning of the 20th century. And at that time, the main focus of women and the social movements that were struggling for equality of rights, because remember that the most important thing that you need to understand when we are talking about gender equality, it's trying to understand how to finish, how to put an end to different rights and situations between sexes and gender. No, we will try to put a little bit more of complexity to the discussion of sex and gender throughout the course, but this is like the main common ground that any feminist wave or any theoretical feminist perspective would understand when you are discussing gender or when you are saying you're a feminist. No, you want same rights, no, depending on sexual or gender identity. So, but at the very beginning, when especially in industrialized countries, in the US, in Europe, the fight was very centered on political rights for women, mainly the right to vote, the right for women to be able to participate publicly in the same way than men. And also in some of the countries, there was a focus on economic rights, that women could earn money, could have an entitlement to houses, to different resources. So this was the focus, no? Economic rights and political rights, but mainly political rights. So that's why sometimes you will hear about this wave as the suffragists. What's another way of calling this wave or understanding it is the focus on the productive sphere, what was happening outside the house. Yes, this in fact it's something that would be questioned by the feminists that come later on, the different feminisms, because this first fight for equal rights was not looking at power relations within the private sphere. And this is something that different feminisms would very much look at. Probably you've heard like an icon of feminism in Western countries, particularly, is Simone de Beauvoir. And one of her famous statements is, one is not born but a woman, but she rather becomes one. And this is the idea that this is where we start getting into the concept of gender, saying, okay, gender is something that is socially constructed. we are born different in biologically would be the perspective, and the whole idea that men and women have different roles in society is something that has been socially constructed. So different feminisms and different positions within the second wave would start advocating for a deconstruction of these differences. The fact that women have been their identity has been defined in relation to the identity of men. I must say that also these second wave feminist positions are a little bit more fragmented than the first one. There's multiple feminist positions within this second wave feminism, but overall, all of them are discussing deeper oppressions of existing in the lives of women at interpersonal levels. Okay, let me move forward. At this time, it's when certain concepts emerge that you will come across throughout the course, and maybe some of you are aware of. For example, one is patriarchy. And this means that it's understanding how the society is built and how there's a domination of men as a social group over women. So when we say we want to, for example, in Argentina or in different Latin American countries, there's a strong fight to eliminate patriarchy. So when we say we want to end patriarchy, what we are saying is we want to finish the domination of men over women as a social group. No? So again, this is a concept, an idea that emerges many years ago, and can be more related to second wave feminism, but obviously it can still be in the agenda. There's nowadays, it can still be in the agenda of different feminist groups and of different feminist causes. So the idea when I'm introducing you all these waves and theories concepts, theoretical concepts, is so that you understand their emergence, but it doesn't mean that one has overcome the other and that one is better than the other. There's still nowadays multiple conceptions of feminisms, and they live together socially and internationally. Okay, another concept that is important to understand related to these times is that of if women have certain roles, men have other roles, and there's also like a kind of association of certain characteristics between what is a woman and what is a man. Rationality is something that is associated with men, and emotions, everything that is related with the private sphere is with women. So this is something that within different feminism, it will be questioned. On the one hand, some feminists will say, okay, this difference is there, but it has been socially constructed. So now we need to do a very strong work so as to ensure that we deconstruct it. Other feminists from this same wave would argue there is certain difference, but this difference has not been valued, and we will put all our energy in ensuring that we value our difference and that we detach ourselves from the domination of men as a social group over women, and we build a different society where these differences are valued. So you will see within different feminisms already you have different positions. Okay. Then moving to the, I assume some of you, especially because of the years in which you were born, and what has been more popular at some time in the US, you will be more aware with the post-feminist position, that it's a position, a wave, a theoretical way of looking at all of this that emerges in the late 90s. And I gave you a couple of extracts to read from Judith Butler, who could be like one of the most important philosophers that has contributed to this way of looking at feminism. And what she criticizes from all feminists before is like, we are getting nowhere if we continue to look at differences of sex, gender, no matter what name you give to this difference, you are perpetuating a difference that doesn't exist. And she would argue, as you will see in some of the readings that you have to do, that neither sex or gender are natural and these are performances. She will be associated with one of the founders of queer theory, that it's against the binary description of human beings. Okay. Okay, so an important aspect for you to take into account is that much of what we now nowadays discuss as LGBTIQ plus vocabulary, identities, and everything that it's called queer theory comes very much from those first discussions that you can see in those readings that I recommended from Judith Butler. So this, for me, it's important that you also understand when we are discussing these concepts like that nowadays have a little bit been more sophisticated, like cis heteropatriarchy, cisgender, all these ones that I left in the screen and that then you can analyze in the PowerPoint that I'll share in Canva, come from these discussions of not trying to move away from women, men concepts that Judith Butler brings about to feminist discussions. Okay. Now, moving forward, we have another type of feminism within the third wave feminist moment, which we can call post-colonial feminism, which comes from global South thinkers, philosophers, activists. I've shared a picture and the picture of a book from Vandana Shiva from India, Staying Alive. It's the title of the book that I recommended if you have the chance to read some of its chapters. And this kind of position questions the Western idea of a feminist and says, okay, in the global South, there is indigenous women, there is Afro-descendant women, there is women that suffer different type of discriminations that little have to do with the type of feminist flags or that the feminist struggles from feminist women in the North, from industrialized societies, from white feminists. So there will be multiple feminists from the global South countries, in Latin America, in Africa, in Asia, relating to this type of feminism, but also African, Afro-descendant, indigenous, migrant women within industrialized countries will feel more related to this type of feminism, where there is a questioning of there being a common agenda across all women. And in a way, post-colonial feminism invites for there to be a multiplicity of feminisms and views. Not something that was already happening in the second wave and in different waves within feminism, but within post-colonial feminism, and especially post-colonial feminists that are inserted within discussions of the development area, that we will discuss more what is exactly development aid, but also within international education projects, will say, okay, there's different feminisms, there's different marginalities. Women in the South, some have an agricultural type of life, so they have other different type of struggles related to the territory, related to the environment, that have little in common with those ones that are being expressed by women in the North. And in this type of feminism that we will also look at in later lectures, there is a criticism to the colonial type of thought system behind it, no? Behind the idea of feminism. There is a criticism to the fact that the previous waves were very much linked with a kind of neoliberal or capitalist rationale that little has to do with the concerns of some of these women. And as we will look at later on when I introduce or when you also move forward with the readings about development, it will also criticize the idea of development as a colonial idea, no? So both gender and development, depending on how they are being treated by some of the discussions in North countries, can be looked as a colonial, a repetition of colonial thoughts or ways of understanding the world. Here, I just wanted to very briefly share that some of the discussions that some of you might be familiar with nowadays when we discuss intersectionality very much stem from this type of discussions that post-colonial feminism puts in the agenda. No, there's different discriminations that women suffer. We cannot look at the interest of different women depending on where they live, their class, their citizenship, their skin color. They might be very different from each other. So I just wanted to bring the link, as I did before, with the concepts of GLBTQ, how they relate to discussions within feminist theory and the evolution of different feminist waves. I'm not necessarily saying evolution as if it's something linear and that it's better, but I do want to bring to your attention the fact that it is certain that nowadays we live in a world with multiple views of feminist theories and feminist movements that question a common agenda, and sometimes some women or some GLBT groups will associate more with one type of feminism than the other. Okay, fourth wave feminism. I just want to finish the class here. Again, as I said before, if I didn't, I just say it now. It will depend on the country that you are placed at. It will depend also on the type of feminist struggles that there have been in different places. In some Latin American countries, now we are saying, okay, now we are living this fourth wave feminism, which is very much related to the political agenda that feminist groups have over here. So here, but not only in Latin America, there's a strong focus on issues related with violence against women. Since there has been also a strong preoccupation of some of the extreme forms it has had in recent years with the femicides that have increased in many places. We will discuss this in another lecture. In the agenda, there's of this fourth wave feminism, there's more discussions around the right, sexual reproductive rights, the right to abortion. I just mentioned a few examples, not to limit it, but to give you an idea. And there's also some more thought given, a more social concern or even social attention to the role of men or different, I don't want to say necessarily men, because here some of the discussions are about, okay, what are the how can we move beyond this man-woman discussion, but yes, how can we contribute to healthier roles for sex, genders that have been historically maintained in this country. So one concept with all the problems that it concept brings about, that it's being used here and we will look at later on, is healthy masculinities, and also as a criticism to a certain type of views of masculinity with a kind of strong binary perspective that has not allowed for multiple identities. Okay, this is everything for now. I hope that you will enjoy the readings of this week, and I look forward to getting to know you soon in our synchronous session. Thank you.